to the Valley to Peak Nutrition episode. This episode is going to be a little bit different than what we typically do, and this is true in a couple of different ways. Number one, it's different in its format in that we have someone on who was in Valley to Peak for a couple of months that we wanted to feature. And one of the main reasons I really wanted to feature him was to show the impact that can happen in a very short period of time with a little bit of focus and intentionality. Now, I won't paint the picture like everyone can accomplish what he did in a short period of time. Sometimes it takes longer, but we are most certainly going to see some sort of change happen if we put some very focused intention and effort into really anything. And his story really captures that. And so you'll hear that both from his perspective as well as my perspective to just in the whole thing, which will make sense when you listen to it. But I also really wanted to circle back after you listen to that and and share with you exactly what we focused on during that time period so that you can start making some changes if you're interested. And so we covered I pulled out five main things that we really tried to work on every single week. And, although his situation was very specific in that we were trying to change specific lab values, it still fits broadly. And that'll make sense as you
I
start
gotta
to
be honest with
listen
you in a
to it.
couple ways.
So
Number one,
I hope
I
you enjoy it.
assumed it would get better, but you never know. And part of that's genetics. Like part of that is, you did all the bullet points that would get it right you were doing. And so I did know that at a bare minimum, you were doing everything you could do to get it right. So that's part of it. Part of it though too is like, you know, you don't know what degree it's going to change.
Yeah.
For some people, it's 5 points. For others, it's 10 points or 20 points. But dude, 100 points.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I could feel it coming. Like all the work I've put in is like, I could see it dropping. 100 points, crazy, but I figured it would have been, a pretty good jump. But
So I never have really asked you, but now knowing what you know now, I guess I have two questions. Knowing what you know now, what do you think led to you getting the number that was so high? And when you saw that number, what was your, like what was your thinking and or mindset going into this?
so I could quickly point to, um, I mean, number one, what I was eating. If knowing that, and you can find this out, with a little bit of research, but you know, um, knowing that saturated fats can really lead to high cholesterol is a very strong contributing factor. Like looking back, like I had a lot of like full fat dairy, in a lot of cases, a lot of red meats, that were high in fat, more so like the 80/20s, um, in ground beef and just, higher, fatty foods. Um, I could easily point to that. Um, and not just the type of food, but the amount I was eating as well, right? So, especially having the younger kids that won't finish their food, it's like, "Oh, I'm not gonna let this go to waste. I'll just go ahead and eat your portions as well," right? So, I mean, I think all of that, like, those 2 combined really contributed to such a high number, and I was never really I really never thought to be so concerned because I was living in a very active lifestyle, uh, working out 5 times a day. Um, Granted, it wasn't so much, um, from like a cardio perspective. It was mainly weightlifting, and it wasn't more intense weightlifting where I would get my heart rate up. But I wasn't riding the bike as much as I have been, these past few months, and or I haven't been actually running. I never ran, but I've been working actual running, what was I saying? Maybe like 5 miles, about 5 miles a week. Um, Kind of just running for an hour each week. Really up like the cardiovascular. Um, yeah. What was the other part of the question? Sorry.
No, it's okay. Yeah, so I mean, that was one question is I knew whenever we had talked the first time, like I remember you highlighting some of that. And if I remember right too, as you started to give just this recall of what you were doing and me trying to help us figure out what's a good game plan to get started with, I remember it not so much being there wasn't any one thing, right? There wasn't like just this overtly high, obvious, oh my gosh, this guy's eating at McDonald's every day. And what's
Right.
it was like death by a thousand cuts. I remember us using that phrase a lot where it was like frequency. It was exactly what you said. Frequency, dose, type. I remember there being some just some typical like cultural cuisine stuff that was a part of that from a red meat standpoint.
Yeah.
So that was part of it, but the other part was, did you when you saw the number, you almost immediately went into action and reached out.
Yeah.
So what was your thinking there when you saw the number, and did you think that there was anything that you could do that could change it as dramatically as you did?
I figure there would be, in talking with the doctor's office, it's like, yeah, they wanted me to get onto a prescription. Um, but I know I've seen lower numbers in the past. I knew, if I would actually I knew that if I actually just paid attention to it and was more um just in tune to what I was putting into my body, and the type of exercise that I, should be or could be adjusting, I knew I could get it down. Again, 100 points. I didn't think that would happen, within the 3 months we've been working at this, but, um, I knew it was possible. I knew, if I kept myself accountable, if I had someone else to keep me accountable, um, you know, changes could happen, and if it wasn't 100 points this time, if it was, say 20, 30 points, 40 points, at least I knew I was heading in the right direction and what we were doing would be
Yeah.
working, you know?
Yeah, yeah, like I said, I that's the hard part is you never know. Like some people you roll the dice and some people that's 5, some people that's 20.
Yeah.
I to be honest with you, I don't know that I've ever seen 100 in 90 days. I mean, I think that that is just remarkable and a true testament to what you did. But I also remember there were like you in your check-ins, you sort of had this um I don't want to say theme. We'll say theme. You sort of had this vibe about you of even if the week is imperfect, largely because of your scheduling, right? Taking care of kids and your wife would be out of town.
Mhm, mhm.
You did something every week, right? And it was almost like you had this barometer of scale of 1 to 10. I'm like, this week I can do a 10, but when my wife's traveling, I'm gonna do a 4, but I'm gonna do something.
Yeah.
Was there any list of in your head, these are non-negotiables, or this week it's a 4 and I'm gonna focus on this, and this week it's a 10, so I'm gonna really make sure that this happens?
Um, it was really just doing the best I could. I mean, so yes, like in those weeks I knew like my wife was traveling, yes, we may be eating out more. Um, I still, did what I could to, I guess, like say like, okay, we're gonna be eating out maybe an extra meal or extra 2 meals. Okay. Typically when I would get a burger and fries or something like that shift happened to where it's like, okay, no, I shouldn't have these fries or I don't need the burger with red meat. Maybe I just focus on something where I can grab the kids that has like a decent chicken option. So at least I'm putting you know, a, I don't know if cap is the right word, but just like just checking myself to be like, all right,
Mm,
this is what we have to do. Have to. Maybe I could have prepared something, but as far as convenience go, this is where like convenience meets just accountability still.
mhm.
Um, so just keeping that in mind and like, you know, is this the thing is, like, as simple as it was, like, tracking the foods throughout the day, and actively tracking, like, in real time, really helped me understand by the time we do get to that dinner, that I'm taking the kids or that we're eating out for, like, I know here are my, saturated fat levels. Here are my here's where I am caloric wise and um, all my other macros. Now I can like use the Fitness Pal app to be like, oh, we are going to McDonald's. What fits that puzzle piece
Mm.
as best it could? Okay, I have 500 calories to kind of stay under that threshold. I can have you know, 3 chicken strips or something like that, you know? So that was I think that was, like, as simple as it may have been, like, that was a huge contributing factor is just being able to track that food, actively and understand what I'm putting in my body.
Good thing too, right? I mean, it really seemed like when I go through there, I can like see people making decisions to where decisions made earlier in the day inform your decisions on dinner. And that is I mean, that is like, that's the nice thing about tracking, but it is hard to get people to want to buy into doing that routinely. But at the same time, it does allow, I mean, your life is everyone's life in our, demographic and age range, which is, it's just not perfect. It's not the '60s where you have dinner every night and mom makes a meat and a starch and a vegetable and that is what it is. If that were the case, like that would be pretty easy to keep tabs on without using the tracker. But because, we, you know, unplanned end up at Chick-fil-A, it's like not ideal, but I can use this tool to make sure that it doesn't just completely derail me. And you did a great job just finding some order of consistency in an inconsistent life stage. I mean, I have kids the same age as yours, and ours is very much the same way, which again, I think is not a reflection of how chaotic your life is. I think it's just a reflection of, the age group and then having kids. So you did a good job. You did a solid job. You did a great job. Great.
And, like, just, again, thinking back to, like, how I was eating to, okay, what are those, like, simple changes that I can make that I can be consistent at, you know? So, I started I was never, like, a label reader at the grocery store,
Yeah.
but, understanding fiber plays a huge part in lowering that cholesterol or, like, we've been talking about, like, making that switch to your whole grain or your whole wheat, pastas and rices and all that, like, making those simple substitutes and making that a part of your daily life, like, and just finding, like, vegetables I can snack on, like, I would never eat, like, 10 cherry tomatoes in a sitting, but now it's like I go downstairs, like, "Oh, I'm feeling kinda hungry. Oh, I could go for these chips, but I also have, like, these vegetables that I could just pop real quick and easy." So making, like just how you help me be aware of, like, what simple changes I can make, so it's not, like, something that I'm I don't wanna be dreading, each
Yeah.
day, "I have to eat this or I have to eat that." No, like, you can make simple changes and just make it part of your daily life, so
Yeah. Do you notice, I mean, obviously it's one thing to have these numbers and these outcomes from the labs, but do you notice that you feel any different?
absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, I've always had some level of energy, but, like, I feel like my recovery has been, a lot better. Um, I would say my sleep has been better overall, and I'm just feeling, um, just more energized throughout the day. I still have my days here and there, but
Well, even, I mean, even though we weren't using it as a specific like goal, your weight and your inches, like you lost 12 and a half inches.
Yeah.
and was it 15 pounds? If
I
I remember
started probably around that 190, 190, 193, maybe as high as 195 in the like early days. Now I'm hovering around like anywhere from like 175 to 178, I feel like over the past 2 weeks.
Which I think your example of the cherry tomatoes versus the chips is a great example, which is, that seems like just a very elementary, healthy thing to do.
Yeah.
But the caloric difference there is 150 calories.
Mhm.
So if you got to think like if a person does that over multiple decisions in a given day and multiple decisions in a given week, that's a fairly significant reduction in calories without, like you said, any dramatic overhaul. So I think that part of what you feel has to be just, part of how you feel better as a whole has to be just some of those seemingly simple things. So again, I think you were money every week. And as like I could see in the check-in from just from the language that you would use, because you always did a great job in that overall section, that I could just envision in your head there being this bar on a scale of 1 to 10, and he was like, no matter what the week was, something was going to go on that bar. Some weeks might be 4, some weeks
Yep.
might be 7, some weeks might be 10, but you were gonna do something, and I think that that is what made you so consistent, and you did awesome, man.
Yeah. Appreciate it. I
Did
appreciate it.
awesome.
Yeah. Like with the weight thing, like, yeah, that wasn't a primary goal. Obviously, like as I could look in the mirror, I'm like, oh yeah, I could shed some pounds, and look in the mirror, I do see a big difference. And I it's great to hear. I'm not big on. I try not to have a big ego, but like, people will make comments from time to time on how good I look, and just seeing the difference. Not even in like my arms or my chest or whatever, but like people can see it in my face, like
Yeah.
and that's makes me
Doesn't
feel good.
hurt.
It does. That's
It might not have been the main measurable, but it doesn't hurt.
absolutely.
Well, you did a great job, man, and I appreciate you giving your attention, not just like whenever we would do these or in the check-ins, because you did them every week, but logging the food, all of that stuff. I mean, it's it's 100% about you, but it really helps me to help you, and you were consistent. And so, thank you for doing that. You did an amazing job, and you definitely did the work. And, if you ever need anything or whatever, if I can ever help, just let me know. But uh, great job, man. I just wanted
Um,
to tell you.
I haven't I don't know if you've checked, but I haven't been tracking food as of late. And I still feel like I'll have my days, but I'm checking the scale. I'm not every day, but like I'll check and see where I'm at. Which I feel good about. Yeah, I think I'm getting to a place where like based on the past 3 months, 3.5 months, like I can understand like number one, I'm not making a whole lot of major changes, in my routine to where like, my bagel sandwich with X amount of fiber along with like my yogurt and granola mix, etc. The only like maybe major changes or any like significant changes might come at the dinner time. But again, I think based on what we've worked on the past few months, like both proportionately and like the quality of food that, we're choosing is, you know, a lot better so I don't have to
Sure, and
track.
that is the goal, right? That is the goal of we didn't run a formal maintenance program for you largely because we didn't need to. Part of a maintenance program is a titration of calories. If people get too low, you want to bring them up to a more sustainable level long term. But for you, with weight in inches being like I was gonna say not even a secondary measurable, just kind of like something we watched, the reduction in calories, because you went from like 26 down to 22 is what we saw. I went back and looked at it. The reduction in calories just came by virtue of good choice, not just change an overall habit. It wasn't restriction or, oh, here's my ceiling. I better not eat another piece of grilled chicken or I blow the calories out of the water.
Yeah.
So there is no need for an increase in calories from that standpoint. But you did kind of run a formal maintenance program in the sense of the habits you created to get where you got. The whole goal of using some of those more uh, uh, gazelle-like intense focus parameters and tools is so that it becomes so routine that when you get to a certain point, it's almost more difficult to stop doing them than it is. And I don't mean that with like using MyFitnessPal. I mean like, using a higher fiber bagel and looking at a piece of red meat and saying, that's probably like 6 ounces, not really three. I need to get it down to three. If you do those things, there is a reference range and a margin that, can swing a lot bigger than you could when you're so focused in the goal. So I think that all of that to say that, MyFitnessPal is always going to be there.
Yeah.
And there's times that you may be more helpful to use it, and there's times that it's not. But, some people love it and they keep tracking once they finish, and some people can't get rid of it fast enough. So I think that it's completely up to you. And I say all
Honest
that to say that I think what you just highlighted is a prime example that you're in the perfect place.
Yeah. And honestly, I wouldn't even mind tracking still, but they updated their app and I don't love it. I don't love the new UI. And
Yeah.
like it won't even let me copy and paste like a meal from like last week into this week or something. I don't know. Um, but again, I don't think I need it. Um, if I start to see an uptick, in how much I weigh in at, maybe yes, I'm like, okay, let me kind of get back to like this foundation. Um, but yeah, I think I'm in a pretty good spot.
Yeah. Well, again, my hat's off to you, man. 100 points. I was shocked when you sent me that. I was like, gosh, that's better than I could have even asked for. I would have been thrilled with 25 and 25 points in 90 days. I think if you had continued to do that, a 100-point drop is possible in a year. I would have said 6 months, a year, which makes me wonder what's possible in 6 months to a year for you, really. But yeah, congratulations. And again, that's just a reflection of you being consistent and looking at it and saying, you know what, can't be a 10, but it can be a 4. And it's gonna be the best 4 that I can muster. And that's exactly what you did, and that's what it's all about. So great job.
I appreciate it. Thank
Great
you.
job.
So again, I think it's just awesome what he was able to do in such a short period of time. And you heard some of his takeaways and some of his lessons in there, but I wanted to share with you 5 main things that we really tried to focus on to bring about, that type of dramatic body composition change. And this happened over a period of somewhere between 3 and 4 months, 90 days, 120 days, which may sound like a lot, but if you think about it in the grand scheme of your life, you're sacrificing 90 days, 120 days of focus and attention, if that's even a sacrifice, for a significant change that not just takes place in the moment, but you now are equipped with the knowledge on how to manage this so you don't find yourself in that position again in the future. And so here's kind of what they were. Number one, we really started keeping record of what was coming in and going out. And our initial goal was not crazy. And when you say coming in, you're talking about specifically with calories and where those calories are coming from. And when you talk about going out, of course, you're looking at an expenditure. And so you're trying to find an equilibrium there or potentially create a minor deficit. And so when we really started this, the reduction in calories was quite small from what his baseline or normal was. Like you've heard us beat the drum of tracking on here every week. It's not the only way to tackle your nutrition strategy, but boy, can it sure give you some really definitive lines and give you a good guide wire to follow. And so that was kind of key number one. And a major reason that I thought that this was important is because across the board, when you see weight loss, particularly from body fat, it almost drives down every chronic disease risk that we know of.
right? That's a very broad statement, and obviously we could go in a number of different directions, but specifically with this, when you're talking about cholesterol and other lab values, we know that having weight loss, if a person is sitting above their, what is considered a healthy total body weight, then those numbers tend to improve. Number two, we aimed to reduce the amount of saturated fat that he was eating. In spite of what you hear all over the internet, there still seems to be a fairly strong correlation when the dose of saturated fat is far above what's needed. So it's not that any saturated fat drives you to this point. It's whenever that dose, that frequency starts to be too much and too often, it tends to drift these lab values up much, much higher over time, combined with other lifestyle factors, which were all in place here. And so that was a major focus of ours, was to go through those logs and try to pinpoint where are these coming in from, what's a threshold to keep it below, and then let's use the tracker to make sure that it stays below that. Number three, increasing the amount of heart healthy fat that he was getting. And so sometimes that didn't necessarily mean a complete reduction in total fat intake, but just a change in the type of fat. So saturated fat is one, and you can categorize the other as unsaturated fat. And, very briefly, we know that high intake of unsaturated fats, low intake of saturated fats tend to make a great heart healthy type of a diet. So that was something we put our focus to. Number four, and this is one that gets overlooked, is we try to increase his fiber intake. Now, this comes from whole grains, fruits, vegetables, and those are going to be your three main sources. Now, the reason for this is because we know and we've seen that when you have a high fiber intake, it literally binds to the cholesterol and carries it out of the body. So if you start, the weight, body fat loss is one thing that's good. Reduction in certain type of fats is good. Increase in certain type of fats is good. But if you throw this in there too, now you've got basically, you're tackling this from 4 different angles, and that certainly is going to improve, a number if you've been high before. Now, to what degree that number is going to change, like we said in the episode, it's hard to say, but it should change it without question. Number 5, we aimed to make exercise consistent. And so, like a lot of people, he was plugging this in where he could, and you would naturally have different interruptions either in life or travel or whatever. And so one thing that we tried to figure out was how to make this consistent across the board. And he was already doing it. Like you heard him talk about that in there, but I think his focus to a different type of exercise and just being more consistent across the board helped as well. And so those are 5 things that really, regardless of what you're dealing with or what you want to focus on, that you can start doing now and would most certainly bring about some kind of a change. And so thank you for listening. Appreciate him being on. If you found this to be helpful at all to you, or someone comes to your mind, you might just send this to him and say, hey, we were talking about this a couple weeks ago. You might enjoy this. This reminded me of what we were talking about, and it could help them too, right? Or you could have a friend in your own journey, and it's always to go at it better with someone than to go at it solo. So hopefully it helps. We will be back again in another couple of weeks with more new episodes. If you've got questions, you can always send those to us at info@v2pnutrition.com, and we would love to cover them. Have a great week, everyone.